Just a few days ago, the second trailer for Dark Deception Chapter 5 was released, and this one is certainly a lot more interesting than the first, with us not just getting glimpses into new gameplay and characters, but possibly getting some insights into some really interesting symbolism and allegories hidden in what we've seen of the prison panic level as well. The trailer starts with Malak in his giant evil lair with an enormous stained glass window monogrammed with his initials, a throne with devil horns on it, and like sculpted wall art of what looks like the souls of the damned. Like, okay bro, dude is clearly trying to show off. Anyway, this is all likely from the last level of the game, Fear Fortress, which of course is a reference to Malak's giant evil castle that we just saw. Next, we see Malak grab a soul shard off of a table and say, "Fierce, such a treacherous little soul. Have you not abandoned all hope?" Implying that this is in fact a fragment of Doug's soul, as we are shown a match cut of Fierce holding a similar soul shard. Next, we see Doug following a glowing blue orb, which may also be a soul of some kind, as this is more typically how souls are represented in media. But who knows, that may just be a misdirect, given that souls have always been represented by purple shards in the Dark Deception universe. Although, it could also be this weird orb, spirit, fairy thing that helped Doug escape the trigger teddies and Barely Buried. Doug being shown in this shot, again, cements the idea that he is the one Malak is talking to Bierce about, with Malak saying, "Do you still dare to defy the fires of eternity? Throw your pitiful mortal pet into the fire, time after time." Malak clearly mocking Bierce at the idea that Doug is a salvageable soul, and him believing that her sending him into all these nightmare portals is a lost cause that only results in Doug's torture and Malak's amusement. Also, at a first glance, it appears to be a cave that Doug is standing in here, with rocky walls and a partially flooded floor. But upon closer inspection, this is definitely not the case, as we can see that this cave is actually made up of the lifeless bodies of mannequins from the holiday horror level, their pointed heads and limbs making up the jagged parts of the cave walls. Right after this, we see on Doug's tablet that he is clearly being chased by some sort of monster, which quickly catches up to him. And judging by the fact that this thing lives in a cave, along with the noises it makes, I'm gonna make a wild guess here and say that this is actually the leech sandworm-esque monster that we were shown in a teaser a few years back. The caption on that teaser might reinforce this as well, referring to this monster in the context of darkness, which would make sense if it lived in a cave. And the round tunnels in this cave could possibly be shaped that way because they are areas of this giant heap of mannequin parts that this worm creature is burrowed through. The only thing that doesn't add up here is that the teaser strongly implied that this monster would be a part of the prison panic level instead of holiday horror. So who knows? Next, we get a shot of Lucky the Rabbit standing on a pile of flaming concrete blocks, holding the heads of Penny and Hangry. Now, the return of the Joy Joy gang in this chapter is actually something that's been hinted at for quite a while, with this poster from 2023 teasing the return of Joykill. So it does seem that we will be encountering a lot of monsters from previous chapters in Chapter 5, which is something that we'll talk about a bit more in a second. But next we gotta talk about the Puppet King, who we see in game for the first time in this next shot, sitting on a throne made of doll heads, likely the heads of the mannequins who he controls, who we see the puppet raise an army of by shooting strings from his hands into the sky, which each pulls down a mannequin. And I do gotta say, it is very cool to finally see the Puppet King in game, after just so many still teaser images of him. Also, I should mention the overall area that he is in the scene does appear to be totally different from the shopping mall setting that we've been expecting from this level. So how we end up here is anyone's guess. Whether the mall is some sort of artificial facade with the mannequins in it, and this snowy, hellish, mountain peak looking area with the Puppet King's throne is the true realm of the level, or something else, we'll just have to see. Especially since I'm guessing this cutscene is at the beginning of the level, given the fact that this appears to be when the Puppet King first summons the mannequins. Okay, so next we get to see Darkstar for the first time, standing on what looks like a concert stage surrounded by dudes in striped suits holding spiked baseball bats with TV heads, and I will not make a Skibbity Toilet reference. I am better than that now. I am a changed man. Anyway, we can hear cheering coming from the background, and combined with the fact that these characters are on a concert stage, it seems like we got Darkstar's role as a character all wrong. Because of the name of the level, Prison Panic, we kept speculating to figure out how Darkstar fit into a prison theme. But it seems her and these TV guys, who will probably be the main enemies of the level, with Darkstar as the boss, are actually a band, with Darkstar being a pop star. Her name likely refers to this being a dark pop star. And her design does somewhat reinforce this too, with her outfit heavily resembling that of a marching band uniform. This one teaser image we got for the Prison Panic level a few years ago also does seem to be backstage of what we are shown in the trailer, with similar lights and scaffolding being visible. The main part of this level possibly taking place in this backstage area where the actual prison cells appear to be. And there's also definitely some social commentary in there about fame or mass media or something, with a pop star-centric level called Prison Panic, a backstage area full of prison cells, backup dancers with TVs for heads, and striped suits that also resemble the appearance of old prison uniforms. And the main pop star girl being a literal robot dressed like a clown. It seems a lot like this level may be borrowing from conspiracy theories about famous singers being replaced with robots and being completely held captive and controlled by the music industry and record labels. Again, hence the name Prison Panic. But this certainly is not the video for a deep dive into that. I will say though, there's a second where the screen turns red and the TV men become skeletons with skulls on their screens. These guys possibly representing public reception to a celebrity, cancel culture, etc, etc. And Darkstar in this shot also seems to have multiple versions of her own face tacked to her chest, possibly representing different facades celebrities have to take up in order to maintain their brand. Anyway, not to get too lost in the symbolism, next we see an enormous army of Malak's monsters, specifically the Reaper nurses from Torment Therapy, the monkeys from Monkey Business, and the Gold Watchers from Deadly Decadence. And this scene does actually remind me a lot of the other teasers we got a few years back, with all of the Dark Deception monsters melted together into a giant mass of congealed flesh. The harsh red lighting does look very similar, along with the presence of, well, 3 of the monsters spotted in that teaser. I do wonder why they chose just these 3, and didn't have a more varied army of characters from the 4 chapters, as there are a lot to choose from. Anyway, this scene I would guess is probably from level 12 again, for the army of monsters does all melt into this thing. Also, quick side note, now that we've seen the TV guys from the Prison Panic level, we can actually spot one of their heads in this thing, displaying the Dark Star symbol on its screen. The last shot of the trailer, just like in the first trailer, shows Malak's eye, and his voice can be heard over the shot saying, "All paths lead to me, and that which you fear the most, the eye." This shot also likely being from that last level, probably towards the very end of the game, when Doug and Malak have some sort of final confrontation. And between the likely giant fortress where Malak resides in this final chapter, and manifestation of Malak as a giant orange eye, is anyone else getting like serious Sauron vibes from this level? Like, I'm definitely not a Lord of the Rings nerd or anything, but come on, the similarity is really obvious. Oh yeah, one more thing I should also probably mention. A few days before the trailer released, the Dark Deception Twitter account posted this image, which appears to be a human skeleton, completely encrusted in soul shards. The implication being here that this was a human who died in whatever realm this little set piece is a part of, and lost his soul. And originally I assumed that this was something for Chapter 5, this possibly being a part of Malak's level, with him having a menagerie of souls he's collected, but surprisingly no. This is actually for the remastered version of Dark Deception coming out later this year, which, as was shown off by the Dark Deception YouTuber Smackin' Pie on his Twitter account, these lost souls will be something that I guess just pops up in each of the levels as a reminder that there were other people who went through these nightmare portals and died along the way. You know, I realized Dark Deception Chapter 4 is the longest that I've ever waited for a game to come out on this channel. Little Nightmares 2 and Security Breach took 2 years. Dark Revival took 3 years, and we're on year 4, going into year 5 of waiting for Dark Deception Chapter 5. Like, that's almost half of the time that I've been on YouTube. When I was younger, it seemed like forever having to wait for Dark Revival and Security Breach, but those were pretty normal development times for games from what I'm aware of. Dark Deception Chapter 5 genuinely does seem to be taking a pretty long time though. Like, even at the end of this trailer, we still don't have a release date, release year, anything like that. So we'll just have to keep waiting, I guess, but the fact that we are getting actual trailers now does indicate that we are pretty close. That's pretty much everything for this video. Just pretend that I said the thing that I normally do, because I can't remember exactly what it is right now.